Welcome to another episode of Bad Kid Garage. Today I'm going to continue working on my 1978 Ford F-350. Today I'm going to remove the hood, the outer and inner fenders. That way it gives me better access to the engine. And there I'm going to continue to remove the fuel lines, power steering lines, anything that's connected, so that way I can get ready to pull the engine out. I'm also going to be working on the transmission today. It's an NP 435, new process 435. Since this truck only had 77,000 miles, I looked at the transmission and it looks like everything's good. There's not any wear. All I'm going to do is just replace the seals on it. I've cleaned it, I've repainted it, but now I'm going to replace the seals and put it back up for storage. I've also bought like a quart of GL4, which was the original type of transmission fluid that come in these trucks. But I'm only putting that in there so when I store it, it kind of keeps the moisture from getting on all the bearings and the gears. So when I get ready to install it back in the truck, I'm going to drain that back out and I'm going to add GL5, which is supposedly the new better stuff. So if I get all that done today, what I'm going to attempt to do is start disassembling the dash in the truck. I need to take out all the bezel, the instruments, the radio, start getting ready to remove the steering column, all the pedals, heater box, all of this, because I'm going to repaint the inside of the truck and I'm also going to repaint the dash. So I'm going to paint the dash the same color as the exterior of the truck, which is probably going to be Ford Grabber blue. So that's what I got on tap for today. We'll just see how far we get. It's a real nice sunny day, supposed to be in the 70s, so I'm hoping that I can get a lot of this stuff done and get it stored, so that way it's put up until I need it. As I go through all of this, I'm going to continue to bag and tag and box all my parts. You need to make sure if you're doing something like this that every little screw, that you write down what it goes to, bag it. You know what I'll do with the dash, anything that's pertains to do with the dash, it'll all go in a box. Then all the screws, nuts and bolts, they'll all be in bags inside of that box with labels of where they go. So I think it's time we get started. Alright, as I'm taking this fender off, I was just gonna get on here and show you a couple of bolts down here. There's a bolt that I tried to take out right underneath this fender well here. Right here, as you can see. There's also one on the inside of this door. It's kind of hidden. You don't want to. Let's see if I can. You see it right there? So I'm gonna have to take that off. I guess the best way to do it, just stick my hand right in there and hold this door so it don't shut on me. But you want to make sure you find that one. And there's also one down at the very bottom that I've already taken out. Which was been right here. Other than that, I just wanted to show you those real quick. So that way, if you got to doing this on your own pickup truck, make sure you look at anywhere could be a bolt, because you don't want to get this thing halfway out and then wind up bending your fender all to pieces because you forgot or missed one bolt. Well, let me get back at it. So as you can see, I'm inside of the truck. The dash and the instrument cluster and the bezel, the radio, all of this stuff's in good condition as far as, you know, it's not cracked or broke. So I'm going to try to reuse most of this stuff in the truck. I'm going to replace the switches and the knobs, but I do want to try to keep this bezel and the cluster from getting damaged, so I want to be careful with it. The dash pad on it, not so good a shape, so I'm going to replace that. So if I break that or tear it up even more, I'm not really worried about it. But I do have to get all of the wiring harness out of the inside of the cab. I have a contact that can make a new wiring harness for this truck, and it'll be plug and play for about a third of the price of what Painless Wiring does, and several other brands that are out there. And it will also come with the new fuse panel that will be the new ones, so it'll be the little plug ones you just plug in. I also am going to be doing my bag it and tag it, and I have my box out there, so as I'm removing these screws and switches and things of that nature from in here, I can mark them, label them, throw them in the box, and keep them all organized, so when I get ready to reinstall this, it'll be easier to do. So I'm going to get started on this, and I'll check back with you here shortly. Alright, here's a side note. Your light button or switch here, this is a button or a knob on a shaft. The proper way to undo this is to reach your hand around the back side of the dash, grab the very top side of this switch, and there on the top side of that switch there's a little button you press. When you press it, it will allow you to pull this whole knob and shaft out together. You don't want to try to rip this knob off, because once you do that, you just pretty much ruined it. So that's the proper way to get that one off. This one here, I'm still looking at it. And then over here on the radio, before we can remove this dash bezel, there are these little nuts here that you have to take off both sides of the radio. If you try to pull this dash bezel off with them still connected, you're going to break it. I don't want to break it because I want to reuse it. So that's the correct way to get this side off. And you have, looks like you have a couple of screws up in here, here, and here. Looks like I'm missing a couple of them, but there is this one right here that's still there. So I'll remove that. Well, I'm going to keep on doing this, and I'll check back with you shortly. Now, as I've got my instrument cluster pulled back, you can just see all the, where the squirrels or the mice were all up in this truck. This is the speedometer cable. If you want to remove this, you have to squeeze this in, and as you squeeze it in, it'll let you pull that out. It's kind of not very hard, but you may try to just rip that off of there, and then you just broke this tab. So just push in on this tab right here and here on the bottom together, and you can just slide this whole speedometer cable right out of the back side of this. You can tell, look at the inside of here, there's all kinds of nice grime and dust and stuff in here. So I've got to get all this out of here. Well, I've got the instrument cluster out. I'm trying to start removing all the wires. I've also have the heater controls out. Now I'm trying to get the radio out. I'm being gentle with all this because it's been a long time since I've messed with a truck this old. But this radio, actually, there's a bracket right there that comes off the bottom of it. And that bracket runs down to this here little bolt right there. So in order to get the radio out from up here, I got to remove this bolt down here. So that's kind of a trick there if you've never done these and you're trying to take it apart and you're wondering, why the heck won't the radio come out? Well, that's why the bolt's way down here. Well, I've had a pretty productive day. You can tell I've got the hood off of the truck, the fenders. I've got some other stuff done. I've also got some parts that come in the mail, and so I'm going to check that out here in a minute. So let me flip the camera around and I'll show you what we've done. So as you can see, I've got the, like I said, the hood and the fenders off. I've also pretty much disconnected everything from the engine to keep me from pulling it out. The only thing I have left to undo is actually I'm going to cut the exhaust back there, and I'm going to take this engine with the exhaust, all this hooked up in the exhaust manifolds. So the gentleman that's going to rebuild the engine, if there's any problem with bolts sticking, he can take care of all that. I don't want to break a bolt and then cause more problems. But you can also see I've pulled the steering column out of it. As y'all can also see, you know, there's not a lot of rust on this truck other than surface rust. But also got inside today and just gutted it. Got everything out of it. Only thing I have left on the interior is the headliner and the visors and that light over here. Of course, the seat belts, but I'm not worried about those. I'll get them out. But I got all the hard stuff out. I think I'm going to take this wiper motor out. Probably take all the wiper arms out of it. So that way, as I'm sanding it, and that's just not something I got to sand around. And I'm going to take I still got to take the e-brake loose. I got the cable still hooked up. And then I'm going to take the clutch pedal and the brake pedal out. Take the gas pedal out over there, so when I sand blast this down in here or media blast it, it's one less thing to have to try to worry about taping off or painting around or any of that. But it's looking pretty good. Just taking the wiring out was really a pain in the neck, but it's out. Like I said, I'm gonna put all new wiring in it, so I'm not worried about. I kept all the wiring, but I did have to cut some of the harnesses, like this wiper motor. Sorry about that. Wasn't a plug on it. It just went into all the other wires and plugged into something else, but there wasn't a plug to unhook it. So I'm hoping that I may just replace that when I put all this back together with a new one, because that looks like it'd be a pain in the neck to have to replace, laying onto your back up underneath this dash trying to fix it. So I think I'm just going to replace that with a new one, and maybe the new one will have a good plug on it. But other than that, that's my day. I didn't get to fool with my transmission today because this took a little longer than I thought, and I kind of took my time getting the wires out of it. So I may, like I said, next week or so pull this out, do the transmission, and get them put up, because the next thing I'm going to do is remove this flatbed off of here, and that's going to be fun. But I got to get it off the truck so that I can get the windows out of the truck. And then, like I said, I've got a new floor pan ordered for the passenger side. I want to get that replaced and get it in, get the doors off the truck so I can roll this truck back and then start media blasting the bottom of the cab. Get all that cleaned up and get it primed. Probably go ahead and paint it with like a bed liner, and probably come up to about right here with this bed liner. I want this to be the same color as the truck, so I think I'm going to come up into here with the bed liner, so that way I'm not going to come all the way up. But then I can really get this frame cleaned up and get it repainted, and then start working on the suspension. You know, you got to start from the ground up. So, well, thanks for watching. Please like it, subscribe it, share it. We also have a Facebook page called Bad Kid Garage. Follow us along on there as well as on YouTube. Appreciate you watching, and have an awesome day.